Okay, so this is class 5 of design of springs. One of the problems that we had started in the previous class, so let us briefly go through it once again and let us try to solve it. Yeah. So you had a problem where it was a problem of a concentric spring, two helical springs nested one inside the other, and they both support a load of 500 Newton. Both springs are of the same material with the material property of G. Dimensions are as given. Now you have to determine the deflection of each spring, that is what are the individual deflections of the first, and that is the inner spring and the outer spring. Second, what is the load shared by each spring? Obviously the load shared by each spring will be different because the sizes are different. And third is once the load is done, then it is a very simple calculation of how much shear stress will be induced in each of the spring wires. So regarding the explanation in the previous class, as I told you, the table here, as you can see, refers to the outer and inner spring. Okay, outer and inner coil or outer and inner spring. Okay, so outside is 40, inside is 28. So wire diameter is also given. One is thick 5 mm and one is slightly thin 4 mm. Number of turns for outer is more 10 and inner is 8. But the highlight part was what about the free length? LF means free length here in our terminology. So there is 90 mm of free length and 78 mm of free length respectively. So this is one indication that whenever the springs are unloaded, you are in a situation where the inner spring is much lower compared to the outer spring. So what we can expect? We can expect that when the 500 newtons load of 500 newton of load is acting on the system itself. In the beginning, that is when the compression starts, only the outer spring being of a higher free length will be taking part in the compression process without even bothering or touching the inner spring. Only when it traverses through the difference, that is from 90 mm of depth, right from the bottommost position, that is a free length of 90, it starts compressing, it goes to 89, 88 and so on, and until it reaches 78 there is no contact with the inner spring. Once it touches the inner spring, then you can say the load is shared. Then we can say the load is beginning to be shared between the inner and the outer spring. Until that time, it is just a case of a simple one spring with those dimensions, the outer spring dimensions. So we understand that since though it is a parallel combination, it is correct, it's a parallel combination, but this also is true, y1 is not equal to y2. What is the reason? Because here the free lengths are different. Suppose say both were the same, that is 90 and 90 or 78 and 78, then y1 would be equal to y2. So from the beginning of the load itself, all the loads would be shared respectively or correspondingly by the two springs. Since the dimensions are different, we understand that see, for particularly the wire diameter is also different. So that means the load shared also will be different. Correct? The shear stress also will be different. Of course, y1 is not equal to y2. Now, when we say deflection, what is the exact meaning of this in this perspective, this context? So here y1 refers to the total deflection of the outer spring. Okay, let 1 be for the outer spring. So let me write the superscript here 1 and this is 2. So that deflection is with respect to the free length. When free length is full, that is whatever the quantity may be is full, from there the deflection is counted, started to count. Okay, so this is a 0th position of counting. So then whatever deflection happens, we call it y. With respect to outer spring, it is y1. Similarly, with respect to the inner spring, y2, the deflection starts from here. Sorry. Yeah. The deflection starts from here, not from here. Okay. So y2 calculation starts from this point, this level. y1 calculation starts from this level. Okay, only when both have the same free length, they both will start at the same point. Okay, so this is one aspect you have to make it very clear. Now, since free lengths are different, deflection in each spring is different, obviously. So what will be the total deflection? Y1 can be written as equal to Y2 plus LF1 minus LF2 according to the figure itself. Okay, maybe it is 0 at first, but that also will be holding good here. So Y1, to get a deflection of Y2 to be 0, still Y1 will be having some deflection, correct? So because as I told you, at first the top spring or the outer spring will be loaded and there will be some deflection. So when you apply this relationship, you will get y1 is equal to y2 plus 12. So the difference in deflections is always 12 irrespective of where you take the position. So that is logical. Okay, next, what happens to the load? Load is obviously shared. Okay, we are dealing with parallel spring combination, so F is equal to F1 plus F2, and we can immediately understand that from this, though we have not yet calculated, okay, calculation is yet to be done, but we can obviously say that in this case, in this particular case, F1 is greater than F2, correct? Because we are dealing with a bigger spring. Okay, so load carrying has to be higher, and also it is the first one which is already carrying the load. So with all those things, we can obviously say that F1 will be greater than F2, though it is not exactly important here because anyway we are going to calculate the value later. So even if you don't want this assumption to be made, if you are not aware also, not an issue. Okay, anyway, let us continue with these concepts now. F is equal to F1 plus F2. Okay, I'll write it here. So this can be written as F is equal to not F naught F01 Y1 plus F02 Y2. What is this that we are talking about? See, it has come directly from here. What we have done is F1 we have replaced with F01 Y1 and F2 we have replaced with F02 Y2. What is this F01? F01 means spring rate. Okay, load per unit of deflection. Load per unit deflection multiplied by its deflection will give you the total load on the first spring. Similarly, load per unit deflection multiplied by its total deflection will give you the load on the spring 2. So it is the same as writing F is equal to F1 plus F2, where F1 is F01 into Y1 plus F02 into Y2. So this notation F0 are also called spring rate. Okay, sometimes in some textbooks it may also be given as K or spring stiffness. Okay, I am maintaining F0 because it is in your data handbook. So that is why this F01 notation you should be familiar with. Okay, so let us understand this. What is F01? So we know what is F. So we'll go back to the equation and try to write it for F01 itself. So I'll write it on the top here. So F01 will be equal to d to the power 4g. I'm just rearranging the equation. 8I by d cube. Okay, so what have we done? This is nothing but F by Y. Okay, the deflection equation which we derived in the previous classes, we have just taken that F and Y component separately and declared that as the stiffness equation. Okay, so okay, we'll see, we'll check whether it is readily available in your data handbook, or else you can just put one after the other. Yeah, it is already there. It is 11.7 here. Okay. Okay, page 170. Okay, f naught 1 is equal to d to the power 4 g by 8I d cube. Now let me be very specific here, that some things you can just write. See, for example, it is 1. So we are dealing with the first wire diameter, first coil diameter, and the number of coils of the first one. Everything is 1. Okay. Similarly, we'll write for f naught 2. Now let me solve it, whatever information we know. If you go back to the data, so this is D, this is okay, let me do it for 1. So 5, and this is 40, and this is 10, and this is 90. Okay. So 5 to the power 4, again substitute in mm, 82.7 into 10 power 3 divided by 8 into 10 into how much was that? 40. 40 cube. Okay. So whatever answer you are getting should be in Newton per mm. Okay, this is F by Y that you are finding out. We do not know what is individually F, we do not know what is individually Y, but we can find out what is F by Y. Okay, how much you are getting?
10.09.
Yes, 10.09 is the answer over here. Similarly, I can write what is F naught 2. F naught 2 will be d2 to the power 4 g by 8 I2 d2 cube. So how much it comes if I directly write it here? Substitute for what is d2 and capital D2 and I2.
$15.07.
Yes. Okay, I'm getting around 0.6. That's fine. 0.6 or 0.7. So 10.09 and 15.06. Now we got these values. You can substitute it back. Okay, substitute in the equation. So which equation we can take here? We know that F is equal to the total load we know is F naught 1 Y1 plus F naught 2 Y2. Now what are the things we know? Total load is 500 newtons as described in the problem. F naught 1 is 10.09, and this Y1 I can write it as Y2 plus 12 as derived earlier, plus 15.06 into Y2. What we are doing, we are writing the equation in such a way that Y2 becomes the only unknown here and extracting Y2 from it. And then once you get Y2, Y1 is equal to Y2 plus 12. Okay, can you extract now? Simple equation.
Sir, Y2 is 15.06.
Yeah. In this case, it comes very similar to what is F naught 2. Yeah.
And
15.06.
Y1 is 27.06.
Exactly. Yes. So to both deflections we got. Now we can say, okay, we have the F naught value with us, that is spring rate value. We have the deflections with us. Now it is very easy to find out what will be the F value. Okay. Now, anyway, if we use this one also, okay, F value for individual spring now. Now be careful here, individual spring. Y is equal to, we have this formula, deflection equation, yg d to the power 4 8 d cube I. What I have done is that from that f naught y, sorry, f by y is equal to f naught, I have taken y to the other side. Okay, since first both were unknown, now only one is unknown, the f is unknown. So if I write it for first one, it will be f1 y1 d to the power 1, everything is 1. But since we already know this, what is f naught y, so I can write here it as, how can I write? Okay, I can just simply write it as 10.09 multiplied by 27.06, correct? If you want to resubstitute, you can do that, but since I already done it, f by y. Okay, in other words, this is f1 by y1. Now what I'm doing is using this in order to compute this. Similarly, f2 will be 15.06 multiplied by y2. Hold on. Yeah, 15.06. It comes same. Yeah.
Sir, F1 is 273.03.
Yes, correct.
And sir, Y2 is 226.8.
Yes. Okay, I'm getting somewhat closer here. No issues. So now we can understand that the outer spring is taking a load of 273 out of 500 and F2 is taking 226.9. There's one more way of calculating F2, or you can say, see, F1 is already taking 273. So what is the obvious thing then? F2 should be equal to F minus F1. Okay, both will give the same value. 500 minus 273.1 will be 226.9. Okay, you need not go back using the same equation. You can do it like this also. But this condition is true only when it is totally shared by two springs only. There is no other mechanism or no other spring in between. Okay, so here we are now. I think we have found out many things. The first one is already done. First part of the equation was deflection in each spring. So these both constitutes answer of that first one. Then load shared by each spring. These both are going to give you this answer too. Okay, what about the third one? I'll complete it here itself. It's a very small calculation. So the third one is, what is the shear stress in each spring? Tau is equal to 8FD K by pi dq. Yeah, 8FdK by pi dq. So K value is dependent on, it is C. Be careful here. See, K value we know it is 4C minus 1 by 4C minus 4 plus 0.615 by C. Now C is a value which is different for different springs. So C value for the first one is D1 by D1 and C2 value for the second spring is D2 by D2. So C1 for the first one, if I go back to the data, it is 40 by 5. Five, 8. Okay, this is 8. And D2 by DT, if I go back, it is 28 by 4. So 7. So there are two C values here. You have to calculate two times. So write what is K1 first, then what is K2 first, then find what is tau 1 and write what is tau 2. So K1 according to the calculation is 1.184 and K2 is 1.213 and tau 1 will come out to be around 263.56 in megapascals and tau 2 will be 306.63 megapascals. Just check it out. You can do a quick calculation now. This will be answer 3. Are you getting a similar answers?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so I think this problem is understood and completed. We'll go to the next problem. Let's write the problem definition, very small definition. You have to prove that d1 by d2 is equal to c by c minus 2 if the diametral clearance is equal to the difference between wire diameters, where c is a spring index. Okay, so this particular proof of concept is with respect to a concentric spring. Okay, this is particularly with respect to a concentric spring that we are discussing. So let us understand here what this actually means. Here, of course, this is a very open statement given. You have to understand that why this statement has come. First of all, say d1 by d2 is equal to c by c minus 2. Obviously here uh, d1 is greater than d2. Okay, otherwise you won't get this ratio. Okay, mathematically speaking, d1 has to be greater than d2. Okay, let me draw a very sample concentric spring, just a cross section. So outside, say the diameter is big. Okay, so let this something be the coil diameter over here, and this let it be d1. Okay, and here in between you have a smaller coil with its own diameters. So from here to here it is d2. Okay, and this is the outer one. Now what they are asking to prove is if this is d1, okay, if this is d1 and this is d2. Okay, let me mark it over here. I cannot mark it on the sideways. So this is d2 which we are talking about. So d1 is the wire diameter of the bigger coil and d2 is of the smaller coil. So this is with respect to the concentric springs. Now the condition is the diametral clearance is equal to the difference between the wire diameters. What do you mean by diametral clearance? So what we are talking about here is diametral clearance means, see, both axes are being shared. Let me put in some other color. Yeah, axis is here. We know for a concentric spring, axis is shared. That is, inner spring will have the same axis as the outer spring. Now, what is the diametral clearance between them? there is a clearance, you have to give it some gap, right? Otherwise the coil should not touch each other. So that clearance, let us call this as a radial clearance, CR. Okay, this distance I'll call it CR. Similarly, that same CR, since it is coaxial, I can expect the same clearance to be here. Okay, CR. Why radial clearance? Because I'm taking on one side. Okay, one side, that is through the radius from here to here. Now, looking at this equation, looking at this arrangement, can you write an equation for this? A very simple equation you can write. And let us try to prove what is asked here, C by C minus 2. Okay, so we know that D1 will be equal to the whole length from here to here. This D1 will be equal to D2 plus, what is that, 2 times, sorry, yeah, 2 times CR, D2 plus 2 times CR plus anything else. Can you guess what is that? What quantities I need to add here? Complete this. D2 plus 2 times CR plus something. Look at the figure. This is D1 all around. This is D2 all around. Coil diameter D2 and coil diameter D1. I am describing the coil diameter. Coil diameter D1 from here to here can be written as D2, this distance is covered, plus 2 times the CR plus something I have to add now to complete this.
So small d1.
Small d1.
Correct. Correct. So actually, yeah, it is actually, you can think it of as radius also and or the diameter itself. Simply speaking, it is D1 plus D2. How we understood this? See, on either side there are diameters. See, this is half of D1. This distance is half of D1, and there is one more half here. So totally half plus half, total full D1. I can write this as 2 times D1 by 2, and this can be written as, again, this distance you have to cover, the small distance that we have left out from CR to here. Okay, from here. So this small distance, so this is 2 times D2 by 2. Okay, so you can write it as 2 times the CR will be equal to, I will just write the rearrangement of the equation, D1 minus D2. I can put this as minus of D1 plus D2. Let me keep this as equation 1. Keep this as equation 1. Okay. Now this is the general thing, like for any concentric spring, this is valid. Now there is a particular case when the diametral clearance is equal to the difference between the wire diameters. Now this is one specific case they are talking about. Whatever equation is we are trying to prove is not true in every case. It is true in one case that the diametrical clearance is equal to the difference between the wire diameters. So by definition, what they are trying to tell is, okay, by definition or by the problem definition or whatever condition is given, we can understand that 2 times the CR, diametral clearance is 2 times CR. Why? Because CR we are taking it as radial clearance. Let me write it here so that you don't get confused. This is radial clearance, CR. 2 times the radial clearance will give diametrical clearance. Must be equal to the difference between the wire diameters, D1 minus D2. This is by definition, they have put a condition. Let this be equation 2. Okay. So again, this diametrical clearance means 2 times CR. Okay. Now substitute one inside the other. See, 2 times CR you got D1 minus D2. So let me write that, combining 1 and 2. Okay, or you can put this 2 in 1, whatever you can write. D1 minus D2 is equal to D1 minus D2 minus of D1 plus D2. Okay, so expand it, open the brackets and see what things you can cancel. Is equal to D1 minus D2 minus D1 minus D2. Okay, D2 is getting cancelled here. Okay, on the either sides. So what you are left with is D1 minus D2 will be equal to 2 times D1. Yes, 2 times D1. There, maybe I have to write one more assumption here, that concentric and C is same, spring index is same. If you consider that C is same, spring index is same, then we can write D1 as CD1 minus CD2 is equal to 2 times D1. Okay, spring index, if it is same, then it is CD1 minus CD2 is equal to 2 times D1. So what you can write, D1 into C minus 2 is equal to C D2. I am separating out the terms, which gives back, okay, I can say, which proves that D1 by D2 is equal to C by C minus 2. Sometimes we can make use of this property in order to solve the problems quickly. Okay, having the same spring index. Okay, having the same spring index, not necessarily true every time, but if there is the same spring index and the diametrical clearance is equal to the difference between the wire diameters, then you can write D1 by D2 is simply as C by C minus 2. Okay, fine. I think you have followed it and taken down. Let us go to one more kind of problem. Of course, similar, but the cross section is different here. So just take it down. Okay, so here what is different? It looks the same. Loaded narrow gauge car weighing 15 kilonewton, moving at a velocity of 1 meters per second, brought to rest by a bumper consisting of two helical steel springs of square cross section. Now what is different here is, what is the cross section? Square cross section has come. Okay, the mean coil diameter of the is 6 times the side of the cross section. 6 times the side of the cross section. Then bringing the car to rest, the springs are to be compressed 100 mm. Allowable shear stress 350. Determine load on each spring, side of the square section, mean coil diameter and number of active coils. So coming back to our discussion, there are also springs which are not totally round, or in other words, which are having a different cross section other than the round one. So that also we need to be aware. For some specific reason, they might do that. See, for example, in page 172 in your data handbook, if you open page 172 in your data handbook, there is a square cross section spring that is described over there. So let me use that same figure for our understanding. So there is, instead of round, there is a square cross section. Okay, it is described like this. Please excuse my lines here, it's a little bit difficult to draw on the digital board. We'll trying our best to get a straight line. Anyway, so this is B and this is H. Always remember, B and H, these are, as the name suggests, this H means height and B means breadth. Okay, for all our purpose. What happens in a square cross section is that H is equal to B. Okay, in this particular case of ours, what has happened is B is equal to H. This is valid only for square cross section, because we are dealing with a square cross section. Okay, square cross section. H need not be equal to B. Okay, so such are called rectangular cross sections. Okay, so how the equations will change now with respect to this? We know that some of the items like polar moment of inertia will change. The reason is that J was described for a round cross section. Okay, pi d to the power 4 by 32. So now this is a different one. We are applying a twisting moment on a rectangular cross section in general and square in particular. So what happens? The polar moment of inertia of this will come into picture, and because of that there is a slight difference in the equation. So what about other things that are suggested here? It says the mean coil diameter is 6 times the side of the cross section. Okay, mean coil diameter is 6 times the side of cross section. So in general you can go to page 171 also. Okay, page 171, you see the equation number 11.13a gives you the stress in the rectangular spring. That is, if it is not round, then the next best option is having a rectangular cross section spring itself. Now in this particular case, B is equal to H. Otherwise we understand that it is rectangular means B is different and H is different. So with that in mind, we can say that C is equal to, I can write here, C is equal to D by B. Okay. Earlier case, what happened? Round, there was no confusion. D by D. D is the coil diameter and denominator is the wire diameter. Now how to take this? Now this is D by B. Okay, B means breadth. Okay, so remember this one constant, it is all embedded in this formula itself, 1.13, the big one that you see over there with all the parameters. So that gives a tau and also included C and other parameters included. Okay, so that okay, we'll solve that later. Then what about deflection equations? Next page, again page 172. So here itself I'll write 11.13 B and so on. Okay, so all equations with respect to rectangular cross section springs are found here. Okay, so we'll use this and solve it. So what data is given here? We have V as 1 meters per second, so it refers to the kinetic energy, very similar to what we solved in the earlier class. So kinetic energy is equal to the energy that is absorbed by those springs. How many springs are there? Earlier case there were 4 springs, you might remember, in the railway wagon, but here it is only 2 springs. So I'll directly write the equation rather than explaining much about it. So we have half mv squared must be equal to 2 times half into F into Y. Why 2? Because the number of coil springs are 2. Earlier case it was 4. Okay, so what are the things you can cancel out, and you can just see that. Anyway, we are not going to use the energy equation one more time, so that is why we need not be bothered about how much this total energy will come out to be. Anyway, I'll just directly cancel half and half. So mass is 15 10 power 3 by 9.81. Why 9.81? We have seen multiplied by 1 doesn't make any difference, it is 1 squared. So remember, you are solving this particular side in SI units, that is in mass is in kgs and this is meters per second. So 2 into what is F unknown, what is a compression? Springs are to be compressed 100 mm, so it is 100 into okay, students, I'll write it here because I cannot write beyond the space. Okay, 100 into 10 power minus 3. Yeah. Why minus 3? Because left hand side you say this is in meters per second, so it has to be in meters here. So isolate, what is F? What is the force on each spring? Okay, F means force on each spring. Force on each spring. They are identical, correct? So both should be same. I need not write F1 and F2 because both are one and the same. How much you are getting?
7645.25.
Yes. 0.2. Yes, correct. Exactly. So this is kinetic energy is equal to energy stored. Just to recap. Stored by 2 springs. Okay. Fine. Now having established what is the force acting on each spring, let us go back to our equations and find out what will be the allowable shear stress. Sorry, allowable shear stress is already given. So given is tau is equal to 350. What is the load on each spring? This is, I think I can directly put it as answer 1 or answer of A. The first one is done. Load on each spring is 7645.2 newtons. Now, what about the side of the square section? Either you can find out H or B because both are one and the same here. Okay, let us go to equations now. With what equations you can find out? So we have an equation which directly gives us tau is equal to 2.4 K FD by HQ. So this is equation number, let me. This is specifically used for square springs, okay? 11.15A, page 173. They have adjusted it for from rectangular directly to square, so more simplified equation. You can directly use this because it is for square cross section. Remember, if it is rectangular, you cannot use this. Okay, this is only used when, I'll write the reason here, because B is equal to H. Okay, this is a square cross section. So what do we know? 350 is already given to us. This is 2.4 into k. K value, do we know that? Okay, we can find out. Look at this. We know that C is equal to D by B. What is given, you see? Go back. Mean coil diameter is 6 times the side of the cross section. So that means we are actually saying it is 6. There's one more way to write this also. This is 6 times the cross section, 6D by B. In other words, 6. Okay. So once it is established it as 6, then K will be around 1.2525. Okay. Multiplied by F. F is how much here? Hold on. Narrow gauge weighing 15 kilometers. That is not. Yeah. F value is 76. Sorry. Seven six four 5.2 into D is 6 times H I can write HQ. Yeah, I think you have followed it. D can also be written as 6 times H. D by B can also be written as D by H because it is of a square cross section we are dealing with. So H and one of these H's get cancelled, so it is H square here. So solve for H square. How much you get?
So 19.84.
Correct. And though we do not have a very standard size as such, we can assume that, okay, let me check whether standard sizes are available. There is a table which gives us a standard size. We cannot use of the wire. Now we have to go with something of a plate. Okay, it is not readily available for these types students in your data handbook as of now. So what we'll do is when you have something like this, approximate it to the nearest whole number. Okay, approximate it to 20. We don't have a separate table for this. In wire, you might remember we had a separate table that is round cross section. You had a wire diameter, but whereas here in this case we don't have anything like that. So that is why you can round it off to the nearest thing. And let me give you a reference table as such, because that table, then the other tables, whatever we are referring to, it is for laminated springs we are using. That is why I don't think it's a very good practice to use that, because it is confirmed for laminated springs only. Okay. So you can settle down for 20, because nobody will manufacture 19.84 unless it is absolutely necessary. So this is for 20. Having said that, D is equal to 6 times H. So 120 mm. That is done. Okay, which part of the question? Okay, this second one is done. So answer the side. So answer B is done over here. Next, mean coil diameter. I think that is also done. Answer C. Both are done. Number of active coils. Going to the number of active coils I. Y is equal to. Can go for the formula again for reserved for square one. 5.66 IF d cube by h to the power 4 into g. So this is 11.15 B. Axial deflection again reserved for B equal to h only. Okay, not for rectangle. Remember, this is only for square. For rectangle, the formula will change. Or I can say from rectangle this has come, but it has been adjusted to suit that B is equal to h. So further simplified. Now y is equal to 5.66, this one. So what is unknown here? We want I. Okay, so here we know that the springs have to be compressed by 100. So 5.66 into I is unknown. F is again 7645.2 into d cube. D cube is 120 cube. Now that we know the size, we can write it down. 20 to the power 4 into 82.7 into 10 raised to 3. So I will be how much? That many number of coils.
So 17.69.
Yeah, correct. So 17.7 coils around. Okay, this is active number of coils. So number of coils that is minimum number of coils that are required, or active coils that are required. Since it is not told to us to design anything or find out parameters, the rest of the parameters like pitch and length, we can stop here itself. When you say design, then all other parameters will come. Okay, you have to find out the pitch and adjust it for that, so and so on. Okay, let me go to the next one. Let's take down this. This is of a rectangular cross section. Okay, let us come to the definition of the problem. It is about a machine that is weighing 500 kilonewtons mounted on 10 springs. This is used for vibratory purpose, protect the building from vibrations. Section of the spring is rectangle, side ratio 1.6. Each spring has 4 active turns and the spring index is 6. Okay, let us write down. So it is rectangle. So here B not equal to H, okay, not a square one. So when we say side of the rectangle is that is a side ratio is 1.6. So how are we supposed to understand? See, the first case will give you something. See, first question is section of the spring so that the longer side is parallel to the axis of the spring. Longer side is parallel to the axis of the spring. So whenever you have an axis and this is the cross section you are dealing with, when you say longer side, then this will be the condition. Usually the springs are made like this, but not to say that it is always like this. Similar to your beam theory, where beams are most effective when the depth of the cross section is, okay, from top to bottom is more than the width. But at the same time, it is not the case with each and every beam. Similarly here, we have the cross section H being more than the width B. H is not equal to B and H is more than B, then what is the side ratio? I can say that side ratio is 1.6 means H by B should be equal to 1.6. Okay, go through all those three statements, you'll be able to understand what we have done here. If you look at question number C, there is a catch there. It says you have to recalculate the stress if the shorter side is parallel to the spring axis. So that will take a later part. So we will concentrate on the first part now. Longer side is parallel to the axis of the spring. Now it has 4 active turns. I is equal to 4 already given. Spring index is 6. So C is 6 means we already described what is that. That is equal to D by B. Okay. D by B. So H by B is 1.6. D by B is 6. And what other things are given? Allowable shear stress. Tau is 300 megapascals. The machine weighing 500 kilonewton. So I can say W is 500 kilonewton. I'm purposely writing W so that the confusion is avoided later when you write stuff in the formula. That is each and every entry when you make in the formula, you have to be very specific. Remember that we have 10 springs. Okay, this is N which has 10 springs. So determine the section of the spring, that is what it is asking you. It is actually asking you, that is what is H and what is B, section of the spring. Okay, so for a rectangular cross section we have tau is equal to KFD into 1.5 times H plus 0.9 B by B square H square. This is with respect to 11.138. Earlier we have described about rectangular cross sections. Fine. Yeah. Now with CS6 you can find out what is K. We'll understand what are individual components here. K is nothing but again wall stress factor 4C minus 1 by 4C minus 4 plus 0.615 by C. So C is 6 here, so substitute it, you should get around, yeah, for 6 it is always 1.2525. Okay, what about F? See, F refers to, we are talking about one spring here, and this refers to 10 springs. 10 springs are taking 500 kilonewton of load. So you have always to, what you have to do, carefully select what is for one spring. So it is W by N. So 500 to 10 power 3 by 10. It comes to 50. Okay, once you practice, you need not show this calculation, you can directly put here 50. Okay, that is, or just show 500 by 10. Okay, just to be on the safer side, I did this extra calculation so that you don't miss out. Okay, so D is 6B. We can write that because C is equal to D by B. So this gives us D is equal to the 6B. H and B are unknown, but you can write one in terms of the other. So I'll write this. I'll write the equation. So tau is, okay, I can write it here. 300 will be equal to, just follow the equation, 1.2525 into 50 into 10 power 3 into D is 6 times B multiplied by 1.5. H is 1.6 times B plus 0.9 B divided by B square into 1.6 times B the whole square. So what we are doing, we are writing everything in terms of B and extracting B, that is only unknown here. So you will get a square root here, and then after solving you should get some mm. Okay, just solve that.
So 40.18.
Yes. Yeah, 40.18. 41, you can choose to have 41, or you can also go for 42, because usually for higher sizes they don't keep with odd numbers, they go with even numbers. But let us keep it at 41. Okay, we are not obliged to change anything much, because here we don't have any reference chart or reference table for us. Okay, so let us keep it as 41. Obviously minimum has to be 40.18, so we'll keep it as 41 approximately. Then what about H? H is 1.6B, so 1.6 times,
65.6.
yes, 65.6 mm. So this will be the answer of the first one, answer A. Okay, the first, then second question is deflection of the spring when the machine is stationary. Deflection of the spring when the machine is stationary. So what is the importance of this stationary and running? See here, of course it is not in the purview of the design right now. When it is stationary, you can take only the static weight into account. When it is rotating, you have to take the dynamic load also into account. So that solution will be different, or I can say that solution takes into account the fatigue loading or the continuously varying load of the spring. So that part we'll discuss next class, that is what to do when there is a varying load. So there is a separate problem for that, we will discuss that. So right now it is considering that the machine has stopped, that is it is not running, and it is only the weight that you are taking care, that is 500 kilonewton of weight that is to be taken care, the static spring at rest, deflection of the spring. Obviously when the machinery is running, the deflections will be more because of unbalanced masses. When there is vibration, the deflections will be totally different, and it may also be that there are 10 springs placed. In each and individual spring, the deflection may also be chosen to be different depending on how the load is concentrated for that particular instant of time. Okay, so we'll not go into that complicated details. We'll just assume that okay, this machine is weighing only 500 kilonewton. It is only to support those 500 kilonewton of static weight. So let us use a deflection equation, very simple one. Y is equal to 2.83 IF d cube by b cube h cube g. Here it is b square plus h square. This is 11.13b. 11.13b, page 172. Yeah. There is the same equation is given in one more form where m value is given, that is nothing but b by h is given. So we need not take that. So we will take the first one. So here only unknown is y. Okay, rest all of the things you know. So y equal to how much you can just say. See that all the units are properly placed. See, once we have rounded off b, there is no need to round off this h, because if you round off this h, then this 1.6b will no longer hold good. So that is what we have to maintain. You can round off only one item here, 41. Then 65.6 will remain as it is because the ratio is 1.6. Suppose say you are going to round off this also, then you might have to change b also. Okay, so let us keep it as it is. So 2.83. How many coils were there? Yeah, 4 coils. I is 4. It was given, right? It is given in the problem. So 2.83 into 4 into the load on each is 50 multiplied by d. D is okay. D you can find out here. D is 6 times b. So 6 into 41. 246. Into b square, that is 41 squared plus h square, 65.6 whole square, divided by b cube, 41 cube into h cube, 65.6 cube into g. Since everything is in mm, I have to substitute 82.7 into 10 raised to 3. If g is not given, students, you can directly assume to be 82.7 because that is the standard value for a chrome vanadium steel. Okay. So what should be the mm of deflection?
$31.337.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Getting around 31.34. Fine. If you have taken total values without rounding off, you might get slight variation, but that is fine. 31.3 around should be the answer for this. So this is about the deflection. Now this is the first case that we have done with. Okay, 31.3. Let us go to the last part. Here what we have to do. Shear stress induced if the shorter side is parallel to the spring axis. So what happens if H is replaced by B? So what happened here is H was on the longer side, so load application was like this. What changed here now? load application of F was like this, parallel through the axis or through the axis, and H was through the cross section. Now if you replace the other way around, so the diagram now will be like this, with the same dimensions that you have calculated. If you do it this way with the same F value, okay, so F is here, same calculation. Now this dimension is different. Of course, here what happens is, this is B, this is H, here it will be, so this is the second case, or I can say the solution for answer C. So H will be 41 and B will be 65.6. H is replaced by B. Okay. Shorter side is parallel. Shorter side means 41 is parallel to the axis or the direction of loading itself. Now with this in mind, what will happen to the other parameters? Okay, so here what you have to take, B as 65.6 mm, H as 41, exactly reverse. What about D value? Okay, D value is 6 times D, right? So how much it comes? 6 into 65.6. This will change now. Okay, D value is considered from here to here, so definitely there is a change. This is D value. So all these values will change. D will be 6 times 65.6. Earlier it was 41. Now you have to change it. So it is 241.08. Just check the calculations later. 241.08. K value will remain as it is because C won't change. Okay.
It's coming 393.6.
393.6.
This one is it? This one 60.
Yes,
Okay, okay. Yeah, correct. Sorry. Okay, maybe some mistake from my side. Eraser. D93.6. Okay. K value depends on C. C value won't change as such. Okay. C value is the same. That is with respect to, I think we have taken how much that time. C is directly given as spring index as 6. So keeping all those things same, what will be the value of tau? So this time tau will be K, sorry, loading also won't change. Mm, 1.5 times H is 41 now, plus 0.9 into 65.6 divided by 65.6 square into 41 square.
Sir, 410.73.
Did he calculate it the right way? 6 times B, right? Yeah, okay. Anyway, the assumptions are such. Okay, how much? 400 point? How much?
410.7.
0.7. Okay. So what you assumed is C is equal to 6 here, and this is already calculated to be 6 times B. Okay, okay, fine. The problem is a little bit open, so that is why there is a small confusion whether you have to take it the same way as it is. Assume that say the coil diameter is unchanged, then you have to go back with the old diameter. But since it has not been mentioned, what we have done is C is equal to 6 we have taken, and since it by definition it is 6 times B, when B changes, then obviously this has to change. Okay, maybe there is some solution where they have not changed as it is, saying that okay, we have just replaced this by this, but that will not hold good because B will change obviously. Anyway, 410.7. If there is any confusion, I'll get back to you next class. But okay, with all those inputs, whatever we have as of now, this looks to be the proper solution. Okay, so I think we are done with these problems. So next class we have one more like concentric spring one problem, and we will go ahead with one more problem, which is, hold on, one more problem which is related to fatigue stress or fatigue loading, repeated loading. So that two problems we'll consider, and that should wind up the helical spring part. Then we can go for the part of flat springs. Okay. Yeah. I think we can stop here, students, for today. So any other confusions or any other clarifications we can handle next class. By that time you can go through your notes, and next class, as I told you, we'll be finishing off helical springs parts and starting off with flat springs or laminated springs. Okay, so all types of springs we'll discuss there, and we'll have small derivations also based on how the spring stiffness and the deflections are being calculated, just as we did for helical springs. Okay, thank you for joining, students.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.